I never imagined a quiet Saturday morning could unravel into one of the most infuriating days of my life. All thanks to Karen's son. It started when I heard the rumble of a trailer pulling up outside. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just another neighbor doing weekend chores, maybe moving something. But then, to my disbelief, I saw him, Karen's son, backing up a rusty trailer right onto my lawn. And before I could even process what was happening, he started unloading trash. Not just a few bags. I'm talking piles, overflowing garbage bags, old newspapers, takeout boxes, and what looked like half a month's worth of rotting leftovers. He tossed them onto my perfectly manicured grass like he was spreading mulch. I froze, coffee mug halfway to my lips, watching as he turned this peaceful morning into a junkyard nightmare. And then he grinned. That smug, defiant grin that made my blood boil. "Relax," he said, shrugging like it was no big deal. "The HOA will cover it." For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. The HOA cover it? What kind of delusional logic was that? I set my coffee down, stormed toward him, and shouted, "Hey! What the hell do you think you're doing?" He didn't even flinch. Just smirked again and said, "You won't do anything. My mom says the HOA takes care of stuff like this." That's when I realized he wasn't making a mistake. He planned this. He was deliberately taunting me, testing how far he could push before I snapped. I felt my fists tighten, but I forced myself to breathe. No, not this time. Not on his terms. I went back inside, grabbed my phone, and called the HOA office. The woman who answered sounded cheerful enough until I explained what was happening. Then her tone shifted to that careful, polite indifference HOA boards are famous for. "Sir," she said smoothly, "we don't typically intervene in neighborhood disagreements. You'll have to resolve it directly." Unbelievable. So the HOA's coverage meant absolutely nothing. Just another empty slogan from Karen's little kingdom of control. That's when I decided, fine. If the HOA wouldn't help, the law would. I called the police, keeping my voice calm as I explained the situation. "He's dumping trash on private property and refusing to leave." Within 20 minutes, 2 officers arrived. And there he was, still standing there with his arms crossed, surrounded by garbage, wearing that same arrogant smirk. The officers approached him. I watched carefully from my porch, heart pounding but satisfied that justice was finally on its way. At first, he tried to argue. "My mom said the HOA covers this," he repeated, like a kid caught cheating on a test. But the officers didn't buy it for a second. One of them crossed his arms and said flatly, "Son, the HOA doesn't override the law. Start cleaning it up now," he hesitated, then laughed nervously. And that was it, the final straw. The officer pulled out handcuffs, turned him around, and said, "You can clean it up voluntarily, or you can do it the hard way." His smirk vanished. The laughter died. And just like that, the self-proclaimed prince of the HOA found himself bending over, scooping up his own garbage bag by bag with his bare hands. Watching him there, humiliated, covered in grime and sweat, was poetic justice. I didn't have to lift a finger. The law had done it for me, and just when I thought it couldn't get better, here came Karen. I heard her before I saw her, the sharp click of her heels echoing down the driveway like gunfire. She came marching over, face flushed red, eyes blazing, voice pitched high enough to break glass. "What do you think you're doing to my son?" she screeched, flailing her arms like a conductor directing chaos. The officers didn't even flinch. One of them turned calmly and said, "Ma'am, your son was caught trespassing and dumping garbage on private property. That's a crime." Karen's jaw dropped. Then she exploded. "This is harassment. He didn't do anything wrong." The HOA said. I had to bite back a laugh. Of course she mentioned the HOA. For her, it was the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. Her son tried to chime in. "Mom, it's fine, let's just—" But she wasn't listening. She just kept ranting, her words turning into a chaotic mix of threats, excuses, and nonsense about neighborhood bias. One officer finally raised a hand. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "the law doesn't care about your HOA. If this happens again, there will be charges." That stopped her cold. For a split second, she just stood there, speechless. Then she huffed, stomped her foot like a child denied candy, and muttered something about targeting and unfair treatment before the officers guided her away. Her son, red-faced and defeated, couldn't even look at me. The arrogance was gone, replaced by quiet humiliation. When they finally left, I surveyed my lawn. A few stray scraps still lingered, but the worst of it was gone. The smell of rot had faded, replaced by a strangely satisfying silence. I smiled, not because of revenge, but because justice had finally been served. Still, deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Karen never takes defeat lightly, and the next morning I was proven right. When I opened my door, a small mountain of HOA violation notices had been slipped underneath. According to them, my landscaping was non-compliant, my lawn design violated neighborhood aesthetics, and, my personal favorite, my yard was too pristine compared to community standards. It was laughable, but also infuriating. Karen wasn't just fighting back. She was declaring war, and I had a feeling this battle with the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA had only just begun. I tried to brush it off at first, telling myself that maybe, just maybe, Karen would let things go. But by mid-afternoon, I realized reasoning with her was as pointless as arguing with a hurricane. When I glanced out my window, my heart sank. There she was, Karen, strutting up my driveway with that infamous clipboard in hand, like a general marching into enemy territory. And right behind her was her son, fully recovered from his last humiliation, lugging another suspicious-looking bag of trash. My stomach tightened. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed my phone and called the police, keeping my tone calm and steady. "Officers," I said, "she's back, and she's trespassing again." "We're on our way," came the response. But this time, Karen was trying to play smart, or at least she thought she was. She started snapping photos of my lawn, pretending to document supposed violations. She waved her clipboard dramatically, shouting accusations about me harassing the HOA, intimidating neighbors, and breaking community rules. It was complete chaos, and yet, all I could think was, she's digging her own grave. I stepped outside, careful to keep a safe distance. "Karen, you need to leave my property, right now," I said, firm but calm. She let out this high-pitched laugh that could probably shatter glass. "You think the law's on your side?" she sneered. "The HOA has rules, and I'm following them." I didn't take the bait. There was no point arguing with delusion. I knew the police would handle it soon enough, and sure enough, within 10 minutes, the familiar wail of sirens cut through the tension. 2 police cars pulled up, lights flashing, officers stepping out with that steady, no-nonsense energy that said, "We've dealt with this before." Karen immediately went on the offensive. "This is harassment," she shouted, shaking her clipboard like it was a legal document. "He's provoking me!" But the officers weren't buying a single word. They'd seen her act before. "Ma'am," one of them said calmly, "you and your son need to leave this property immediately. Any further trespassing or damage will lead to arrest." Her son muttered something under his breath as they turned to leave, something that sounded a lot like regret. Karen, though, was fuming. She stomped off down the driveway, red-faced and seething, clearly already plotting her next move. I couldn't help but chuckle. She might never learn, but one thing was clear. My property, my rules, and this time, the law was on my side. As silence returned to my yard, I stood there for a moment, taking it all in. The clean lawn, the calm breeze, the satisfaction of knowing I'd done everything by the book. I hadn't just protected my space, I'd earned peace of mind, but deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Karen never accepts defeat quietly. For the next few days, I stayed on alert. Every morning, I'd glance out the window, half expecting another stunt. For a while, nothing happened. The neighborhood seemed eerily calm, until the third morning. That's when I noticed a large box sitting right at the edge of my driveway. It had the HOA logo printed on it in big, bold letters. Curious and a little wary, I walked over. When I opened it, my jaw dropped. Inside was a mess of junk, clearly from her house. Old flyers, broken gardening tools, shredded papers, Karen's personal trash. At first, I didn't understand. And then it hit me. She was trying to frame me. Her plan was genius in the worst possible way. She wanted it to look like I had dumped my own trash to spark another HOA complaint. My pulse quickened, but I forced myself to think clearly. I pulled out my phone, documenting everything: photos, videos, timestamps, the whole deal. If Karen wanted a war, she'd picked the wrong opponent this time. Later that morning, the circus returned. Her son appeared again, dragging another trash bag toward my lawn. But this time something was different. He looked nervous, hesitant. The cockiness was gone, replaced by the memory of handcuffs and humiliation. And of course, behind him came Karen, shouting accusations before she even reached my property line. "Stop harassing us!" she screamed. "You're targeting my family." I didn't move an inch. I just called the police again, calm as ever, and let them handle it. Minutes later, 2 squad cars pulled up. The same officers stepped out, their faces saying everything: "Not again." I handed them my phone, showing the photos, the videos, and the timestamps. They compared everything to the HOA notices and just shook their heads. Karen tried to argue, of course. She went on and on about bias, unfair treatment, conspiracies, the whole playbook. But this time, the evidence spoke louder than her words. One officer looked her dead in the eye and said, "Ma'am, filing false reports and staging incidents like this could be considered harassment. Depending on the circumstances, it might even lead to legal consequences." And that's when it happened. Her face changed, from fury to panic to the cold realization that her little performance had backfired. Her son stood silently behind her, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. You could see it written all over his face: shame, regret, and maybe even exhaustion from living in his mother's shadow. Finally, the officers escorted them both off my property. Before leaving, one turned back and said firmly, "Any future incidents, sir, call us immediately. We'll take it from here." And just like that, the chaos was over. I stood there, the sun breaking through the clouds, lighting up my freshly mowed lawn. The air smelled like victory. I'd done it. I'd faced down the HOA queen herself and won, but it wasn't just about triumph. I'd learned something important: patience, evidence, and faith in the law were far more powerful than anger or revenge. Karen's empire of entitlement had finally crumbled, and this time the entire neighborhood had witnessed it. I exhaled, feeling the weight finally lift. My home was peaceful again, my garden was untouched, and my confidence stronger than ever. What a ride. Seriously. Can you believe the nerve of some people? If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. And don't forget to subscribe for more wild HOA and Karen stories coming your way. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if Karen tried this in your neighborhood? Because trust me, this is one battle you definitely want the front row seat for.